content of this video may contain references to cigarettes, alcohol, and other substances. Viewer discretion is advised. This video is intended for entertainment and educational purposes only, and is not an endorsement of smoking, excessive alcohol consumption, or any other behavior depicted. Please consume responsibly and in accordance with local laws and regulations. If you are under the legal drinking age or are sensitive to smoking-related content, we recommend that you refrain from watching.
In other words, suck my...
Hi Chickeritas, welcome back to my channel. Today we're diving deep into one of the most influential music genres in history, jazz. From its origins to its subgenres, we'll explore jazz music, how it shaped modern music, and meet some of its best representatives. So grab a drink, get comfortable, and let's get started. Jazz originated in the late 19th and early 20th centuries in New Orleans, Louisiana. It originated on the basis of blues and ragtime. Ragtime music competes on the importance of blues and perhaps suppresses it in influence. In fact, in the early days of jazz in New Orleans, the line between ragtime and jazz was so thin that the two terms were often used interchangeably. The main difference between jazz and ragtime was a melody. Ragtime music was so pianistic that few vocalists could sing it. Ragtime differs substantially from jazz in that it was a through-composed, fully notated music intended to be played in more or less the same manner each time. Music written initially and essentially for the piano. Jazz, by contrast, became primarily instrumental music, often not notated and partially or completely improvised. Jazz has been influenced by many different cultures. It's like a melting pot of cultures blending African, European, and Caribbean musical traditions. This music, combining European harmonious structure and African rhythms, is most often improvisational. New Orleans is considered the birthplace of jazz. This place is associated with vices. It is known that the city was named after the sinful nobleman Philip Charles of Orleans. People came to this place from different parts of the world to spend money on different pleasures. Despite the diversity of musical traditions and their wide geographical distribution, New Orleans developed its own distinctive jazz style. Jazz emerged from an extensive mixture of black and white music. The rhythmic and structural elements of jazz, as well as some aspects of its traditional instrumentation, come mainly from West African traditions. While European influences can be heard not only in the harmonic language of jazz, but also in its use of such traditional instruments like trumpet, trombone, saxophone, string bass, and piano. A limited set of instruments was available to black musicians, so a great solution was to emphasize harmoniously connected and simultaneous lines. Jazz musicians used the piano, drums, cornet, clarinet, trombone, tuba, or bass, banjo, and years later, the saxophone. Every instrument had a specific individual role in the polyphonic ensemble. For example, from time to time, the cornet embellished the melody in the middle range. The clarinet performed the functions of obbligato in higher register. Four rhythm instruments provided a single harmonic basis. The syncopations inherent in ragtime and jazz are the results of simplification of complex polymetric musical constructions that are characteristic for all types of West African ritual dance and ensemble musical works. Thus, the main features of jazz are syncopation and swung rhythms. Walking bass, scat singing means singing to syllables instead of words. 12-bar blues chord pattern, blues scale, humping, it means rhythmic chordal accompaniment on the piano. Steps, usually on brass. Glissando, slide from one note to another, and instrumental breaks. Blues and ragtime. The fusion of these diverse musical styles creating something entirely new, embodying the spirit of freedom and improvisation. influences including the melodic structure of African American spirituals and the syncopated rhythms of African music. Artists like Louis Armstrong and Duke Ellington pushed the boundaries, establishing jazz as a legitimate art form. As jazz evolved through the 1920s and 30s, it spread across the United States primarily through the Great Migration, when African Americans moved from the rural South to urban areas like Chicago and New York City. This led to the formation of the jazz big band. The 1920s, known as the Jazz Age, welcomed dance halls and speakeasies that featured jazz, drawing in diverse audiences. It became a soundtrack for the Roaring '20s. Determining the first jazz song can be challenging due to the genre's evolution and the oral tradition from which it emerged. However, many historians cite Livery Stable Blues by the original Dixieland Jazz Band as one of the first recordings to be classified as jazz. It was released in 1917. This song features a lively rhythm, syncopation, and elements of improvisation typical of early jazz. It incorporates aspects of ragtime and blues, which were foundational of jazz development. While Livery Stable Blues holds a significant place in jazz history, it is essential to recognize that jazz evolved from a rich tapestry of musical influences including blues, ragtime, and various folk traditions. Consequently, many songs and performances before this recording contributed to the genre emergence. In addition to Livery Stable Blues, other early jazz pieces include Dixie Jazz Band One Step, also by the original Dixieland Jazz Band, St. Louis Blues, by William Christopher Handy, published in 1914, which became influential in jazz.
Mr. Handy, this is a great thrill to all of us to have you on the show because, well, you're sort of the dean of Tin Can Alley. Thank you so much. How young are you now, sir? 75. 75 years old.
These tracks, along with many others, helped shape the sound and style of jazz in its formative years. Now let's talk about the various subgenres of jazz that arose over the decades. Each has its unique characteristics and sound. The first one, Dixieland Jazz, originating in New Orleans. Characterized by upbeat tempos and collective improvisation. Key figures, Louis Armstrong and Jelly Roll Morton. Swing. Developed in the 1930s, this style is known for its strong rhythm and was popularized by big bands. Leaders included Duke Ellington and Count Basie. Bebop. Emerging in the 1940s, bebop focused on complex harmonies and tempos, appealing to musicians rather than dancers. Charlie Parker and Dizzy Gillespie were pivotal figures. Cool jazz. Birthed in the late 1940s as artists like Miles Davis and Dave Brubeck incorporated smoother, more laid-back elements compared to bebop. Hard bop. A return to the roots of African American music blending blues, rhythm and blues, and gospel into jazz, popular during the 1950s. Key artists were Silver and Art Blakey. Fusion. A blend of jazz with rock and funk elements starting in the late 1960s through the 1970s. Innovators included Herbie Hancock and Weather Report. Let's look at some jazz chords.
Okay, so it's time to look at another most popular jazz progression.
It's Calle 12, Bar Blues. Probably you heard of it few minutes ago.
It starts with C7. C7 sounds like this. Then we go to F7. G7, F7, C7 again. But that's not all. We should play each chord proper amount of time. Pretty jazzy, isn't it? By the way, this is the literature I recommend, if you want to be a jazz expert, of course. Jazz has profoundly influenced countless genres, giving birth to R&B, rock and roll, and even pop music. Its improvisational nature allows for fusion with almost any genre, making it timeless and universal. Jazz is more than just music. It's a cultural movement that embodies resilience, creativity, and a deep connection to human emotion. It continues to thrive today, inspiring new generations of musicians and listeners worldwide. Thanks for joining me on this musical journey through jazz. If you love this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more music content. What's your favorite jazz musician? Comment down below. Until next time.